Alright all, and welcome back to a new video and another Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post update, our second one of this series. I hope you guys did enjoy the weekend's action, obviously between the Cheltenham Open meeting and Punchestown. If you looked at the weekend's tips and had followed them kind of level stakes, you would have been up a little bit. Eldorado Allen drifted out at 13-2 and was very good, and obviously Hunter's Call ran a big race in the Greatwood Hurdle for us at 14-1 each way. But we have to move on and we have to look forward towards Cheltenham again. The first video of this series went down well. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and if you enjoyed that, or if you do enjoy this video, do make sure to give it a like down below to let me know, and if you're new here, do subscribe to the channel. But what we'll be doing is we'll be going through the key performances throughout the weekend, and I suppose analysing, you know, my thoughts on them, and obviously interacting with you guys, and you guys providing your thoughts on them. And I suppose their respective Ante-Post prices or their likelihood to go for certain races, and so on and so forth. You'll get a feel for it pretty quickly if you don't really know what I'm going at here. Just before we do start, again, another week gone. Mo is now looking absolutely atrocious, but link in the description if anyone can contribute, muchly appreciated. Starting off on Friday over in Cheltenham, a horse that got a fair bit of hype on Twitter and stuff like that was Protectorate, who won the Novices Chase, and he won the Novices Chase very well. He beat Southfield Stone, who was his main kind of rival. Mossy Fen didn't run any sort of race, so it's hard to know kind of with him what they're going to do. Yeah, look, he's a nice horse, he's a good horse, but if you really think this horse is going to be involved in a March Novices Chase at the festival, you really need your head screwed on, I believe. I just don't think he goes close in a race like that. Yes, he may be able to pick up a graded race somewhere along the line this year, maybe a grade 2, maybe a grade 3. I know the Skeletons are very close to Warwick. Maybe he can pick up a grade 2 race around there, maybe. But this horse won't be winning anything grade 1 wise come Cheltenham, I suspect. It's one of those chief ones of kind of early season form, and I'd be willingly to take him on for those sort of things. I know he's still at a big enough price for a race like that, but what he's done so far has been good. He's a good jumper, he's a good traveller, but he's just not good enough at that level. He was well beat in the Coral Cup last year. If he's well beat in the Coral Cup last year, what thinks he's going to get past Envoy Lane? I don't see the angle behind that at all. The cross-country race was interesting. Obviously, Easy's Land and Tiger Roll slightly disappointing. If I'm being brutally honest, I want Tiger Roll retired. I think he's done so much for the game. He's been great for the game. You know, he's now a household name, even in non-racing households. But you don't want his career tarnished with a rubbishy last year, with him pantsing around, getting pulled up in races. He didn't look quite right at Cheltenham. He sweated up beforehand. He was never travelling. He got pulled up halfway round. It was the right decision by Robbie Parr, but I think they're now beginning to go to the well too many times, and this horse deserves a long and safe retirement first and foremost. So that's my thoughts on him. I certainly wouldn't be looking at him at all in any sort of Ante-Post way for the cross country or for the national. Easy's Land, a lot of people were very disappointed with his run. I thought it was grand. Knowing Jason Kiley, who's the man that looks after Easy's Land, the ground wasn't with him. He was lugging around heaps of weight, given the way the handicap was, and I think they'd be pretty happy with that. I still think he takes an awful lot of beating come March, and actually the fact he's now 5-2, near on becomes a price. I wouldn't be putting up anything 5-2 for a cross-country chase this far out, but I can kind of see why people would back at that price, because he has drifted out to that. 5-2, I think it's with Bet365. I think he's 9-4 on a lot of boards, and it's just, it is becoming close to being actually not a bad price, because I still think he absolutely hacks up at March, because I don't think Tiger Roll will be around to face him. One that maybe escaped your vision on Friday at Fairyhouse. I'm not saying she'll win anything come March time, but a horse to really keep the right side of is a Peter Fahey mare called Royal Kahala. She won a mare's maiden hurdle on Friday. Do look back at that race if you can. She previously won a bumper at the same track. She's got plenty of speed. Obviously, Peter Fahey known for training the once hype mare Gypsy Island. He's got another nice mare in his hands here. She's a strong traveller. She was a decent enough jumper of a hurdle. She made a bit of a mistake at the last, still quickened really well on pretty tricky ground, and I think there's an awful lot to like about her. I'm not saying for a second I'd be putting her up for a mare's novices hurdle, because it's silly going against Willie Mullins in that race, but I think she is a good mare and she'll pick up plenty of prizes. Moving on to Saturday, Duffel Coat won the Triumph Hurdle Trial of Grade 2. I couldn't give him away enough for the Triumph Hurdle. I just don't think he goes anywhere close in a race like that. I kind of got it wrong on Saturday. I thought he might have a nice little spin round come third or fourth, and they might try and plot a go with the Fred Winter with them. I'm still not. I wouldn't be overly surprised if they try something like that. That's more a race I would see him running in very, very well. But he just lacks tactical speed for the Triumph Hurdle. I think he'd be out of his depth from a long way out, and he looked like he was going to get pulled up 3 out on Saturday and kind of almost outstayed them. I don't think he'll get that sort of luxury in the Triumph Hurdle, and therefore I'd be taking him on, even though he's shortened into second favourite, I think, at 16-1. Eldorado Allen won the Novices Chase over 2 miles. Very hard to know what was going to happen with Gumball. Obviously, Fussel Raffles didn't run very well, which I was not expecting, but, I don't like Fussel Raffles, and he always has that type of a run in him somehow, which would always temper my enthusiasm with him. I think the winner of this race is smart. I think Eldorado Allen is a very smart horse. Now, obviously, I backed him on Saturday, which increases my feeling that he's smart, but he jumped really well for his second chase start. He certainly upgraded on his first run over fences, and I'll be very interested to see where he goes. Maybe the 2 mile Novices Chase around Kempton on the 27th of December might be an option. I'd say the Henry VIII at Sandown will come too quickly for him, even though he operates quite well around Sandown. But this is an interesting horse to keep the right side of. So I wouldn't be against him much. And just leading off from that, the 2 mile Novices Chase at Punchestown on Saturday, I thought was a really wishy-washy race. I was very unsatisfied by it. Felix Stagey ended up winning it. Just kind of grounded out from Sizing Potsy. Sizing Potsy's a pretty exposed horse at this stage. He's a good horse. He's a nice horse. He'll win a few decent pots down the line, but probably more in top handicap company more than grade 1 level. And Darver Star was really, really flat. I don't know what the story was there. I don't know whether he just needs a trip or what the story is, but I just wouldn't be so sure with the Oracle at the moment. Obviously, Shishkin probably will come out and win it, but I think it's open apart from that. I don't think there's that many other, real chief protagonists at the moment. So Eldorado Allen may be one to keep the right side of. One that got, I thought, almost too much flack for his beginner's chase debut on Saturday was Asterion Furlange. I saw so many tweets, which is obviously just going to happen when you're on racing Twitter and stuff like that, saying, oh, clumsy Asterion Furlange, heart and mouth moments Asterion Furlange. He made one mistake. He got in close to 1 down the back, and he over-jumped 2 out. It was actually a spectacular jump, but he just over-jumped it and nodded on landing. Other than that, his jumping was absolutely superb. I was really, really impressed by this Asterion Furlange. He was a horse I liked last year. We will have to see what he can do left-handed before we get anyway carried away about Cheltenham or anything like that. I think he's a good horse. I think he needs 3 miles, though. I think he's a real stout stayer. But I thought his jumping was impeccable, I must say. I couldn't fault it. But he got in close, as I say, got in close to 1 down the back, but again was pretty nimble there. And just over-jumped 2 out. But you'd swear, based off racing Twitter, that this horse had gone round clouting every single fence. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought it was really good. I'd like to know your guys' thoughts down below. And also, one horse, again, a little bit Royal Kahala, like, I'm not sure. Some of you may have seen it, some of you mightn't have, but make sure you do go see it if you haven't. Let's Be Clear About It, who won the bumper at Punchestown on Saturday. This is a really smart horse for Gavin Cromwell. Patrick Mullins rode him, didn't come off the bridle, beating Enniskerry, who's a well-touted horse from the Barryconnell yard, and Dark Spark, who's a pretty good horse for Gordon Elliott. He won really impressively. I would almost be putting on a bet the next time we see this horse, Let's Be Clear About It, on the track. He will be wearing the green and gold of JP McManus, because he's owned at the moment by a smaller owner for Gavin Cromwell. Gavin Cromwell's obviously had some good success with JP over the years, and I'd say that's what will happen. Moving on to Sunday. And Sunday we got probably the biggest clues of the weekend. And starting off with the big breakaway, winning the 3 mile novices chase around Cheltenham. It was a good performance. He jumped really, really well. It was a bit like MVLN. You couldn't have been happier with this horse's jumping. Again, though, I was a little bit maybe against the overall feeling of kind of the racing community after his run. You'd swear we'd seen Koto Star reincarnated and running again around Cheltenham, the way people are talking about this horse. And I do understand he's a very good horse. He's a horse I actually quite like. But this horse needs racing experience. If he's going to go anywhere close in an RSA this year, they're going to have to get 3 or 4 runs into this horse. He is lazy as anything. His mind isn't on the job yet, which also you could make a point that because his mind isn't on the job, you know, how could he be? I do understand that argument. But this horse, I thought he was going to get pulled up for a few strides, turning away from the stands. Robbie Parr suddenly had to get really, really serious. He went completely asleep. And if he does that at Cheltenham in a festival race, he won't win it. Because he did it last year in the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, and he was suddenly 20 lengths down and couldn't get back into the race. If he did it in an RSA, he'd lose lengths. You can't make that up. You can't be like that. Now, he will learn from it. I do understand that. It was a nice start. But I wouldn't be getting over carried away. Let's be honest, the butcher said didn't jump a twig all the way round and was a half length down when making a mistake at 2 out. Now, I know the big breakaway, he would have beaten the butcher said. I understand that. But he'd have beaten him probably 4 or 5 lengths, not the 10 or 12 lengths he beat Doc Penfro. So it's just something I'd be tempering my enthusiasm until I see him a few more times. He's still a really babyish horse. He could be a great horse, but he isn't a great horse yet, unlike what people would make you believe. Put the Kettle On won the Schlur chase. I was unfortunately wrong. It's really sad at the moment with Defi de Soy. He's just not himself. The jump at the first was hair-raising. I don't know whether that was an issue or whether he just went out like a light. It's one of those ones you almost want something to come up, because after the festival where they were like, well, we didn't find anything, it's kind of unsatisfactory. I suspect the team themselves want something to come up. You're like, why on earth is he not kind of running his race? He jumped quite well, actually, apart from the first. But, yeah, no, it's a real shame. Put the Kettle On. She is a very, very game mare, let's put it that way. She jumps well on the whole. She had to do it the hard way this time out because Duke de Geneva ran a cracking race for Paul Nicholls' unstable debut. And she's now 10s for the champion chase, and she's going to have to go down that route. There's no getting away from it. And probably based off what she's achieved and being the ARCA winner last year, she's probably a fair price at 10s. But I don't know, Lord of mercy, this is a terrible division though if she's 10-1. I don't know whether it's because I'm thinking of Altior, I'm thinking of Sprinter Sacra, maybe even Duvan, going prior to that, you know, Moscow Flyer, Masterminded. And you're looking at Put the Kettle On, and I've always got one abiding memory of Put the Kettle On, which was I was at Wexford one day watching a maiden hurdle and seeing her get absolutely stuffed by 8 lengths by a Willie Mullins horse called Mr. Blue Sky, who's ended up being a handicapper at best. And ever since then, like, it's just been, like, it has been a bit of a revelation, and I get why people have become attached to her because she keeps winning and she keeps finding and all this good stuff, but I don't know, I feel it's almost morally wrong that this horse is 10-1 for the champion chase. I'm not disputing that she should be 10-1, but it just goes to show the division at the moment is thin on the ground with other horses, because in a normal circumstance, if you had horses like Sprinter, Altior at his best, Masterminded, all those horses that I've just mentioned, this horse shouldn't be 10 to 1. Or wouldn't be 10 to 1. But anyway, she was very good, she was very game, and yeah, if you're on at bigger prices for the Champion Chase, well done. Probably wouldn't be thinking she's a great price at 10s from an Ante-Post perspective, considering I think she's the type of horse that you'll always get a price on the day, because people will always underestimate her, me probably being one of the people that underestimates her. So that's something to bear in mind. Two of my guys were running at Punchestown, and it was, it was a pretty sorry day at Punchestown on Sunday. Latest exhibition got beaten 7 lengths in the Florida Pearl Novices Chase over 2-6 by Pencil Full of Lead. I think the winner of this race is very smart, this Pencil Full of Lead. He was bought to be a very good horse. I remember him winning his Down Royal bumper at the Down Royal Champion Chase Festival last year. And he was really impressive, and he went to Rob Core, and he was really babyish over hurdles. He just didn't get his act together, but it looks like Fences is making a man of him. Latest exhibition, I was actually really impressed with his jumping. I thought his jumping was really good. He came there with every chance. He just lacks a gear, and that's just something that, unfortunately, I'm going to have to just come to terms with. He doesn't maybe have that little bit of tactical speed. I think he could do with a really kind of staying 3 miles. I wouldn't be giving up on him. He's back out to 16 to 1. We put him up initially at 16 to 1, so he's no bigger price than we put him up at. Yes, he did, his RSA claims did take a knock on the weekend. I wouldn't get away from that. But I won't be giving up on this horse until I see him over 3 miles at Christmas. I'm hoping that's where he'll go next. I think he really needs every ounce of 3 miles. He's a as I've said before, he's an old-fashioned chaser. He needs every inch of 3 miles. And I think that next run will probably tell us where he'll go. I think if he runs a big race in the Grade 1 over 3 miles at Leopardstown, I think they'll obviously pursue the RSA dream. And if he's kind of outpaced again and finishes second or third, beaten 10 lengths again, it wouldn't surprise me if they have a dart at the National Hunt Chase. He's well good enough to run at Cheltenham. It's just which race. He's still a good horse. He's still a horse I love a lot. I'd be very interested to hear what you guys think about him. But I thought there's still case for optimism. A few good horses have lost in that race before. Presenting Percy got stuffed in the race by Jury Duty the year he won the RSA. A horse called Disco got stuffed in the race one year. I remember when I was there in the fog. Ended up coming a neck and neck down in the Grade 1 at Christmas, and won 2 Grade 1s later in the year as a novice chaser. So it sometimes does create a funny result. I thought he ran still pretty well, and hopefully, I'll be keeping the faith anyway, that he can still turn into a pretty good horse going forward. The Morgiana Hurdle was another extremely unsatisfactory race for Samoa backers. And at the end of the day, I've put Samoa up for the Champion Hurdle at 20 to 1. He's kind of 7s or 8s wherever you look at the moment. So still overall, we've got a decent enough price. I think he's the best horse in that race. I know Abacadabras doesn't do a tap when he gets to the front. The problem I have with Abacadabras, I think he's a really good horse. And I know Mick, one of my regular viewers and regular commenters, it was saying to not rule him out and for the weekend, and it ended up turning out to be the case. My issue with Abracadabras is that he just won't have it in him, I don't think, to win the Champion Hurdle. And I'm not for 1 second saying he can't go and win an awful lot of Grade 1s. And he's a horse that I think gets a lot of unnecessary stick from people, because he's a really, really good horse. Let's not get away from that. But he'd have to get the ride of the century, I think, to get this horse up in a Champion Hurdle. You'd have to be delivering him way, way after the final hurdle, which is a really tricky thing to do. But he did it quite nicely. He's back down into 8 to 1. I thought he'd actually, I still think he's got a better chance than a horse like Aspire Tower, personally. But you know, that's a one open for debate, I suppose. I thought he did improved an awful lot for that down Royal Run. Sam Watt, I think, was the best horse in the race, not even just from a bias perspective. Look, I'm not one to jockey bash. It probably wasn't Mark Walsh's best day, but Mark Walsh has had plenty of good days before, so I wouldn't be getting overly pent up about that. It's one race that didn't work out the way he wanted to. Super Sunday came back in on his lap. He made a mistake at the last. But it's the turn of foot after the back of the last, when he'd made a serious mistake, that would still give me so much optimism about this Sam Watt. I think he's a really good horse. There's an awful lot of people saying, oh, well, won't Epatante just win it? Maybe she will. But at the end of the day, she beat Sharjah and Darver Star last year. Now, you know, she beat them impressively. But I've a feeling at the moment that the Mullins camp thinks Sam Watt is their best chance ahead of Sharjah. And obviously Darver Star has not particularly looked like he was taking to fences and hasn't looked particularly special as a 2-mile novice chaser. So what is the form of that champion hurdle? I don't know. I think Epatante, we won't find out almost anything about her until the champion hurdle next year in 2021, because she'll go around the fighting fifths, nobody will run against her, she'll win, everyone will get overhyped about her, she'll probably come in the betting as a result. But I think she's probably the right price at the moment, but I'd be still taking her on. I think this Sam Watt could be a really good horse still. And that leads us, after 21 minutes, to finally get to the Ante-Post selection. My 6th Ante-Post selection of this year. There's a running list of them and the dates. They've been provided on down in the description below, just for complete... what am I looking for? Transparency is the word I was looking for. So... you know, and you can go back and trace the videos and you can see for yourself the prices that were put up at certain times. A horse that ran yesterday, and he didn't run at Cheltenham, he didn't run at Punchestown, but he ran at Fontwell. And I assume from some people will know by that who I am talking about. This is a bit of a speculative selection, I must confess. The other 5 I've put up so far have really been quite solid about. This one's the first one I'm a bit wary about, but I think the price is right. I'm selecting him at 25 to 1, and it is a horse called Nasalam for the Triumph Hurdle, trained by Gary Moore, who won a juvenile hurdle at Fontwell yesterday by 59 lengths. Now, the horse in second is a horse called Shentry, trained by Dan Skelton. Now, I've been reliably informed that this horse wasn't very good over in France. So there is a little bit, there's a lot of suspect form of his race yesterday. But I do urge you to go and have a look at it. He just travelled like a really good horse. He jumped like a really good horse. And he put them all to bed. Like, he's won by almost a furlong. You know, even if the horses are bad in behind, he's still beating them so impressively. Mostly, though, this is a selection on Gary Moore, on the owner, and I'm just taking that chance that this horse could be similar. Obviously, the race was won last year by Gary Moore horse in Goshen. We all know what happened there. But mostly, this horse seems to be almost an amalgamation between Goshen and Botox Haas from last year. It's the owner of Botox Haas in John Stone. He was very similarly bought and done like Botox Haas. Botox Haas finished second in a French hurdle when trained by Francois Nicot and was then bought over. He made his hurdling debut at Fontwell as well. So the fact they're starting off at Fontwell is obviously no issue for a Gary Moore horse, because I think it's a local track to him. Also, this horse, Nasalam, second in a hurdle over in France when trained by Guillaume Macaire. He's subsequently been bought, he's been brought over, he's run in the race that Goshen's won last year. He's won so easily, he's 25 to 1. I just think there's too much about this horse. Like, fair enough if the horse had been put in at 14 to 1 or something like that, I wouldn't have touched the horse. But he's still a good price at 25s, I think. You're taking a chance, you're taking a massive chance. based off last season's kind of Gary Moore's Triumph Hurdle horses. But he obviously, as a result, has a decent enough tell on what makes a good juvenile hurdler. And I'm hoping this might be his main one for this year. So it is Nasalam at 25 to 1 for the Triumph Hurdle. Will be our 6th Ante-Post selection for the 2021 Cheltenham Festival. I won't be overloading you with selections like I did last year. It will be probably one every 2-3 weeks whenever I make these videos. There probably will be one per video. If I find the right price and the right horse. And I think this could be a very, very good price for a very good horse. So fingers crossed that is the case. I know this has been a bit of a mammoth video for my standards, around 25 minutes. It's a lot more than usual, so I do apologise if you prefer the slightly shorter videos, but it is Cheltenham Ante-Post updates. It was a big weekend of action and I needed to get through everything. Hopefully you guys did enjoy, and if you did, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel down below, and of course donate to the Movember page if you can. It would be really appreciated. And until next time, we'll be back previewing the Betfair Chase next weekend. I hope you stay safe, stay well, land a few bets, and I'll see you guys then. Cheers.